actually going to be looking at renegotiating this deal, talking to the investors that you have currently on your side, and talking to the owners of Voorhees Catering, and making sure that this deal is actually going to be in line with your current with your current company, both financially and corporately. And essentially, you will be diversifying your product line and being able to offer that overall catering service in this market here. We do see it as a growing market and a major opportunity for you. So going right into the context, we're going to be looking at a couple of key issues right now. Is that the investors are actually asking for that 25% rate of return, which basically means that they are looking for a rate of return that is potentially unreasonable, and we also think that they are potentially forcing this offer on you and forcing this deal. So we do think that through discussions with them and communications to your investors, that we want to make sure that this is not a hasty decision for you, and that you do have that thorough communication there. And if we look at the actual potential for itself, is that it is a backup for you guys. So as you were talking about, and during the economic downturn, there are a couple of areas, especially during the internet bubble when it burst and your company did go down. And this is a chance for you to again diversify that product line into the different areas and basically have that backup in case people are not looking for those equipment rentals and are looking for the catering services instead. And lastly, is that you just have Voorhees recently lost a major customer, Hayden Smith, so we do think that this is actually going to be leverage for you moving forward. So this is an issue that we are going to look at later, and we think this is actually good for you in order of negotiating this deal and bringing that price down. So now if we look at the catering versus retail, you did identify a couple opportunities both in each industry, and we want to clarify why we are specifying going towards that catering industry instead of going towards that retail business. So right now, if you look at the catering industry itself, is that it is the $3.8 billion in market size, which is actually rather small in comparison to the overall food industry that in the appendices provided. But one thing that you did bring up is the fact that it has potential to double over the next few years, and it is very increasing, and people are looking for these professional services in a wide range of industries. So as you'll see down there, the next portion is that it is very fragmented, and there are several different niche markets, those ranging from hospitals, industries, cafeterias, schools. There are so many different areas in which your company and the catering services can actually provide to, and basically different areas that you two specialize in case basically things go wrong. And lastly, that there are low entries to barriers. So the main barriers to entry is the equipment costs, the upfront equipment costs in these services. So we don't feel like this is a major barrier to entry. So it could actually mean that there's a higher threat of entrance, but due to the current brand loyalty and brand reputation of Voorhees, we do feel like this is not going to be as high of a threat for you guys if you decide to specialize into the catering industry itself. And as I said before, it is quickly expanding. And what we did look at was the recent purchases that they have currently, in those recent purchases in history, the average price per earning of those purchases were around 4. And right now, the offer right now is around a 6.3 price per earning. So we do think that this is actually an area for you again to think about negotiating based on the difference of the price per earnings of these different companies. So we do think this is actually a benefit in the industry itself, looking at those past transactions of different companies. And now, when you go on the other side of the market, looking at the retail side, just basically putting food, creating in your inventory, and then putting it on like the shelf of Walmart. There's a higher risk. There are major barriers to entry. You have to make sure you get those contracts in. There are storage issues. There is the upfront cost of creating the artistic graphics for each product there. So you see that there are major barriers to entry. And let's not forget that for each of the shelves you want to actually have your products on, there's a $50,000 cost for your company too. So as you can see there, across a wide range, across there maybe many retail stores and maybe a bigger market, there are so many barriers to entry for your company to enter. We think that this is a potentially risky venture. So as you can see moving forward, we do not recommend going through that retail industry. I think you had that notion previously, but we did want to clarify this issue as it was a definite option for your company to go through. So as you can see here, is that there are really more quantitative and qualitative factors that align with your company, and we do think that the catering industry is more viable right now.
Okay, so from here I'm going to take you through the deal in terms of what we feel is maybe restructuring the deal, both qualitatively and quantitatively, the issues we've seen in the information you have provided us, and what we could see moving forward of how to restructure this deal to be more favorable to our company moving forward. When we look at qualitative factors, the main benefit we see is, as Michael's touched upon earlier, is being able to diversify our product offering. This opens a potentially full new market to enter, and with it currently growing overall in the industry, we see this very beneficial moving forward. We also see that 65% of the customer list aligns between both companies that we are currently looking to move forward with. With this, we see obviously a great opportunity with those 65% of customers to create a synergized offering to encapsulate all of obviously the business of those 65% of customers. We also see an opportunity with 35% of the customers which aren't currently aligned by being able to go and visit these customers and detail them on our new offering. We could potentially bring in the other 35% of customers to move into both and synergize through both our offerings. We also see significant market share. Obviously, we will have a lot of market power and market share moving forward. This does, as Michael's touched upon, have a risk of if the industry shrinks in general. We are obviously a large part of this industry, and this is a risk that obviously, Mr. McMillan, you have seen in the past with the internet bubble and the problems that you had following that. And also, there's an option to looking to sell moving forward with this potential deal. However, we do have qualitative drawbacks that we've seen from this deal. The most important is management time. We have two sections of employees, and essentially we've heard from Mr. Aldi that the company has been run very well and everything is going smoothly with the current structure we have. However, we are now having two corporate cultures synergized, and there may be hurdles moving forward with this that we want to obviously have both our business units happy and working productively. There's increased risk, as we touched upon, is obviously there's risk in general that you've seen, Mr. McMillan, in your past and the debt you've had to issue and how you've overcome this. You are, however, in a turbulent market potentially moving forward, and as we mentioned too, now you are issuing more debt. You are going to have to pay off this debt, and if the industry shrunk in general, you would have debt piling upon the current debt you are issuing to complete this venture. In terms of potential culture issues, I've touched upon this with management, just synergizing obviously both these now business units we will have moving forward, and loss of a key customer. We haven't lost, there isn't the loss of the entire customer. However, 25% of the revenue Mr. Aldi has sent to you in an email, and you passed on to us that information. That currently looks at 5% of the fresh food revenue you have moving forward. Obviously, with business change and leadership change with businesses, there are going to be customers who notice this. So this is a risk we see going forward that we will have to address because already before acquiring said company and looking into the deal, we are already seeing reduced revenue income from big customers. And if these big customers are not happy with the changes which go through this company moving forward, there is a potential to lose more revenue moving forward there. So now looking at the the takeaway of the qualitative factors is if we are able to get the quantitative factors to work and the price to align correctly, we do see the upside of purchasing for these moving forward. So now to address the quantitative factors, we see the main benefit being that average revenue growth right now is around 40% for Borgese, bringing in potentially a brand new industry with the $600,000 down payment for equipment. That will obviously enter us into a new market within the catering industry. We also see that the net present value, today's dollars, of future income through this acquisition will outweigh the net present value of today's dollars of the $2 million bank loan that you do see fit, Mr. McMillan. One thing worth addressing from that is we do see that you have history with these investors and these shareholders, and within 5 years you were able, from the purchase of TopServe, to overcome the issues that investors potentially could have with the risk of this movement forward. Based on this, these investors do trust you, and they do see what you're able to do with your potential. So is the $2 million bank loan actually needed? This is something we can look into further. Now looking at the drawbacks of the quantitative factors, we do see much more in the short term here. First off, the debt repayment of the $3.5 million loan in 5 years is highly unlikely to these investors. and this mainly is built upon the high 25% required rate of return they have, especially as I've touched on earlier, the history we have with these investors to set such a high rate of return and to indicate such a high sense of risk. We feel it goes against the history that you've had with these investors. Also, we do see that the 15% gross margin on the 600K investment to enter the new market is half of the 30% gross margin we currently have on sales we already have existing. We also see that 2009 and 2010 cash flows, we can go into some of our appendices, are currently negative. Most of this is due to the $600,000 down payment, but also due to the emergence of a new market we are entering with the 600K. And it's going to take time for this to grow to become a satisfactory revenue rate that we see positive cash flows coming in. We also have the drawback of an average price to equity of 4 from prior precedent transactions. So we do see as well there is potential that we are overpaying for this deal. So the main takeaway from this is there is a need to negotiate the deal for Vorgees, and there are certain terms that we would like to address moving forward here. So in terms of negotiating the deal, the first thing we're looking for is we want to ask for a price of $4.5 million as opposed to $5.5 million, and the main justification for this is this brings us to a price to earnings ratio of just over 5, and we feel again this is above the average of the industry, but above 6 we feel is overpaying. And a big thing which is worth noting is currently with TopServe, you are making 15% year-on-year growth on revenue, and it does seem everything is healthy with TopServe, so there is no rush, and you have given this to our information, Mr. McMillan, that there is no rush. It seems most of the initiative to go through this deal is due to pressure potentially from investors who have seen your success from between 1995 and 2000 and would like for you to re-emulate the success from them as investors. We also see a risk premium of 15%, and this brings on to those investors. We see 25% was too high, and we believe that 15% is fair to you, Mr. McMillan, and it's fair to your investors. We would also like to purchase assets over shares. We see that instead of having assets and having shares instead, this has tax implications, which will bring positive inflow coming to you as an individual moving forward. Additional recommendations as well. This is where we recommend not to take the salary of $100,000, and this is to reduce the personal income. And instead, if you were able to take shares and bring it through dividends, this would have a more favorable tax rate on you moving forward. We would also like to assign a general manager in the prep facility. We see you already have 2 sous chefs who are looking over the quality of the food before it goes out to the customer. However, we would like the accountability and the responsibility moving forward with 1 general manager individual. This is because Mr. Aldi has obviously done very well with the company, and he's very respected because of that. We need a figurehead to take that responsibility moving forward. We would also like to delay the purchase of the $600,000 equipment, and this is because this is just, again, affecting our immediate cash flow issues, and with such amount of debts we're bringing in and the risk involved, if you were to go through with this deal, we feel that this purchase of equipment could be something more long-term to see a potential new market moving forward. But again, we have to gain momentum before we can make such large purchases, we believe. Also, we would like forward communication. This is related to the Hayden Smith discussion and the information we received from you with the reduced purchases of 25%. We would like, with this recommendation, to go with Mr. Aldi and meet with the clients and meet with the largest clients he has. And together with yourself, Mr. McMillan, and with Mr. Aldi, you will be able to meet customers, and Mr. Aldi will be able to speak through who is taking over the business and why they should feel safe with that movement and why everything that they respect with the culture of the company will be involved moving forward.
So if we look at the next month now, this is going to be a combination of the negotiations and that 2 to 3 week due diligence process that Mr. Aldi required in the actual purchase itself. So in that area, we're going to be negotiating the purchase. We'll be talking to our current investors, talking to the management team of Vorgees, and letting them know all the different implications that we are taking into account for this repurchase. So we do think that this could take up to a month. Again, our current situation is that you are not in as much of a rush as the company looked to purchase. As he said, he's actually looking to sell. So you know that he's searching for those opportunities. He's searching, so it's more on his side of the table. For us, we want to make sure that it's best for you because he is looking for that purchase So in terms of the due diligence of the purchase, there's a lot of other things instead of just customers. We want to make sure that our supplier communications is right too. So when we go through and purchase it, we have to talk to all the suppliers, make sure the key inputs of these quality products are still in too. We have to look at our accounts receivable, making sure all the customers, not just those main ones, are thoroughly communicated to, and let them know that there is going to be this management change and a potential brand name change too, depending on how you like to structure this deal. Looking forward to. And there's on the other side too, the accounts receivable is also the accounts payable, our department too. So making sure again those key suppliers, those key inputs of what you have or what Ortiz has thoroughly communicated, and make sure that process goes through. So we do see this as being a month and potentially going further depending on how well this process goes through. And if we look into the medium term, we're looking at roughly kind of like the 3 to 4 month area. We're going to be starting to integrate those staff members, addressing potential corporate culture issues, kind of diving into those deeper issues of not just the financial implications, but more of like the soft skills of the company, making sure that everything happens right. Doing potential workshops, team building events, that kind of stuff in that area there. And then that's when the communication is going to arrive, is that once that negotiation is done, really go through that thoroughly and making sure that everyone's on board with exactly what's going to be happening there. And changing that product offering. So now that you have diversified, that you can actually start to alter what you offer and potentially change up your overall product lineup basically, and say like maybe offer discounts on like overall purchases of both equipment and catering purchases. So now you have that opportunity to basically diversify all your product lines and try to tap into different markets and basically capture more customers that you weren't able to previously capture right now. So that's what this main opportunity gives for you, especially at that time. So you can really strategize with your management team and making sure that it's the most successful for you looking in the future. And lastly, if we look at June 30th onwards, we're really going to look at the our food industry. So as we said, we don't recommend going through that $600,000 capital expenditure just because of those financial implications. So during that process, we do want to make sure that you do reevaluate that industry because as you had notified, there are some people looking at that industry and it is growing. So we do think that this is a potential, just not for you right now. And in that time, after all the big changes happen culturally, we do want to make sure that you do reevaluate this because this is a potential new area for your business to go into. And the last thing is going to be looking at those internal reviews. So basically going through 360 of everything, looking at their corporate culture, looking at the brand offerings. We know that this is not like a year past the purchase, but we do want to make sure that this is more timely than a year, just because we think that this is a large change for your company, and I think that we have to really take into account everything here. And once again, just to add on, now we're going to look at a couple of risks. And one thing is that they actually don't offer, or they do not accept the offer of changing these different implications here. And we're going to basically just consider, or we suggest you considering other options. There have been recent transactions in the past, and that means that there are potential customers. And another portion that because it's so fragmented, there are other people who are going to be looking at selling their company because there are so many companies in the catering market. This is not the only company that would look to be purchased because there are so many other companies due to the fragmented market itself there. And lastly, what happens if the industry shrinks? Well, this is big. A big way to mitigate this is through the diversification. So because one industry shrinks doesn't mean both are going to shrink, and because you have diversified, you're going to start to cover your grounds there and really become and have that competitive advantage over other firms because they're not doing this right now. You're one of the first people to basically go through both areas here, and we think this is a major mitigation in case the industry does shrink. And just to conclude, we have brought forth a lot of qualitative and quantitative factors of this deal, and I think you guys really have to take this time and really assess these and take note of all the implications. And we do think this is potentially very worthwhile, but through major communications to your investor and through the management team of Ortiz, we think that you are able to purchase this company and diversify your product line. Thank you for having us here today, and we would now like to open the floor for any questions.
So, contingent to the suggestions you made regarding lowering the buying price and such, and the potential interest related to that, can you show me what the cash flow looks like for your recommendation?
So for our cash flow analysis, we did generally, to begin with, actually pick what we were given by your information. The recommendations we made on top of this are what we could see as being better than currently what our financials are. These financials are based on a $5.5 million price, with $2 million in a bank loan and $3.5 million from investors. So as you see, we have the net income, the total, the cash from investing, and cash from financing, which is the bank loan payments coming through, and then our ending cash flow each year. Did that answer your question?
Can you just show me the PE of 4, where you guys got that from?
That was looking at the past precedent transactions that have happened in the industry itself.
And
So we
I'm
looked
looking
at
at all that.
Yeah, looking at the price, and so that there was one that had a very high one, but that was looking at the retail market. So there was one that was an outlier, and we didn't include that because it was in the retail market. So that one had around a 10 P per E, so we did not include that because we're looking into the catering industry there.
What's the basis for your assumption that the 30% market risk premium is too high from our investors?
That assumption is mainly bought from average market risk premiums that we've seen in the past, and also more based on the history that you have as a business owner with your shareholders. That within the 5 years you were able to pay off that loan, and you were able to, and that was mostly debt, at least from the information that we were given. So based upon that previous success, from that you would bring in implications that there is risk involved. However, risk is reduced from prior success and prior relationships with these investors. However, from the information we were given, this 30% was based on a high-risk venture, and we believe from the context and from the history that this is not a high-risk venture. And it is risk, absolutely, but 35% we still feel is very high.
So I think you correctly identified, they're more have an urgency on the seller than us as the buyer. But don't you see as if we're going to decrease the buying price that they might look to another buyer, considering the fact that they have this sense of urgency to sell?
Yeah, so that is a definite issue there, and I think the biggest thing here is looking at how much it affects you personally. Because right now it is basically contingent on that price going down. So if you have to look at if that price stays high and you're not able to afford that repayment to your investors, that essentially you can't do it, right? And there may be other people that look to buy it, but essentially it comes down to are you able to purchase it or not? Does it make sense for your business? And that's mainly the main reason we're looking at that. So essentially you would not look to purchase it, unfortunately.
So they want 5.5, you're recommending 4.5. Is there any wiggle room in that, or is 4.5 my ceiling?
We've set 4.5 on analysis, which after basing the money at 4.5, we saw both that being fair to the industry standard, obviously that price to equity ratio, and we also saw it being more comprehensible in terms of will we have positive cash flows moving forward, and will it be a better return for investors, which is obviously important as well, because with so much debt issuing in as we've addressed before, there is risk involved in this environment, that with higher debt, obviously we're increasing the risk. So the justification for 4.5 is based on a P to E. If that P to E changes as transactions continue to occur, absolutely it can be readdressed. However, from what we see as the industry as a whole and what we see we're willing to risk in that industry, we see 4.5 as the number that we see fit.
So what exactly, say for instance, we go for this recommendation to purchase this company, what exactly is the strategy going forward for that wing of the company? Because presumably they cater to people like us, event coordinators, event planners. If we own a company that caters to other event planning companies, and they see that, what does that do to our revenues, and how are we able to diversify our revenue base?
I think from before we have addressed though, 65% of customers are included in both customer lists. So you're absolutely right that some do come across.
That concludes the 5-minute question and answer period. Now 25 minutes feedback.
I'll let you finish that.
Well, I guess the way we would go down that road is saying 35% of customers are not related, so that is a decent amount to begin with. And as we increase the business and go separate ways, hopefully that customer list, while we do want some customers to synergize, we also do want to continue to diversify that